Hello, and welcome back to Project Zomboid and episode 2 of Mastering the Wilderness with our friend Gene Wilder here. So if you didn't watch episode 1, I would highly recommend that. I'll put a link down in the description. We covered a lot of stuff about basic foraging, basic cooking, and clean water and stuff that a lot of that's going to carry over into this episode, which is going to be fishing. Now, if you're going to be living in the wild, I would highly recommend fishing as a skill, starting it as early as you can. It's, in my opinion, one of the best ways to keep yourself well fed and happy in the wilderness if you're near water, and it's a fairly easy skill to maintain and level up. There are a couple things you need to keep in mind though. If you're crafting your own fishing pole, you're going to need to find paper clips or nails to use as hooks or lures. There are a lot of different things you can use, but out here in just the pure wilderness, chances are you're not going to find any of that. So you're going to want to bring something with you. You can find paper clips and boxes of paper clips in office buildings, desks. They're very easy to find. Any sort of office or school situation, you'll be able to find paper clips. Nails you can get in construction areas, hardware stores. You can even dismantle furniture and get nails if you need to. You can also find these things while foraging, but out here in the deep wilderness, it's very unlikely. As you can see, like trash items down here in the bottom left are insanely rare out here. So it's extremely unlikely that I'm going to find something like that. So you'll want to bring it with you if possible. The next thing to keep in mind is that you do not know how to craft a fishing pole straight off. You have to either take a trait or an occupation or find a magazine. So there's the angler trait that costs 4 points and gives you +1 to fishing and the knowledge to craft and repair fishing rods and fishing traps. And there's also the angler occupation, which gives you 3 fishing and a foraging and the same thing. And then there is the Angler USA magazine. The June 1993 one will teach you to craft fishing rods and to repair them. Or alternatively, if you get your fishing or carving to level 4, that'll auto-teach you. So, that being said, all you need to do is take the trait or occupation when you're starting and you'll be fine. So once you've got those things, we'll get right into it instead of babbling on too much more. So I went ahead and I've got my bugs that I found foraging in the last episode. And then I've got some paper clips and nails to use as well, and then our sharp flint flakes that we made last time. And then we've just got some branches and stuff here. So what we want to do is we want to carve one of these branches into a wooden rod with our flake and our carving skill. Alright, there we go. Now we've got the wooden rod, and what we're going to do is we're going to take that over here to our very foggy crafting surface stone. And then we are going to use this hemp dog bane that we found while we were foraging also in last episode. And we can use that to make twine. So we're going to go ahead and turn all of that into twine. We're just going to speed it up a little bit there. There we go. Now we've got our twine and our wooden rod. Now the wooden rod has to be used to make the twine out of the hemp dog bane. So we're going to get 2 uses out of it. Because now we're going to use that wooden rod to make a fishing pole. So we go here to crafting, and we have make fishing pole right here. So we go ahead and hit craft on that. There we go, we got that done. And then what we're also going to do is we're just going to, don't think we'll need one of these, but we're going to craft this now before we forget, just so we have it available. Alright, so while that's crafting, the next thing to take into consideration is your bait. So right now we've got plenty of bugs and stuff, and you can catch most of the fish with pretty much the same bait. I believe the only fish you can't is the pike, which you have to have worms or bait fish to use, which are other fish that you catch while fishing that you use as bait, if that's not confusing enough. So we've got some bait and our crafted fishing rod here. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do some basic fishing now, and then we'll get into some other stuff a bit later. So what you want to do is you want to look around the water, and you'll see little, I suppose, splashes where they're likely to get fish. There you go. There's some right down here. It was happening right there just a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some bait. We'll add a caterpillar to our rod. So we're just going to wait while she equips that. All right, and we saw some splashing right here, so we're going to hold down right click, pick where we want to cast, and then left click. And then we just sit here and watch, and you can see the tension on the line bouncing around. Now, you can fast forward this with F5, and it'll stop when you get a hit on your fishing line. So if you don't want to wait, you can let it do that and just wait and see until you get something to bite, which happens right there. And then you reel it in by holding down left click. And you don't want to let too much tension get on the line or it'll break. And we got a dirty rag. So something to keep in mind, low-level fishing is likely to catch you a lot of junk and very small fish that you can't do much with. So it will take a bit of work, but the advantage is once you get that skill up there, you'll be able to catch pretty much what you want. So we're just going to keep on fishing until we catch something useful here. And speaking of useful, those rags are actually useful in the wilderness, so it's another nice thing to have. What did we catch this time? Another rag. All right. It's always good to make sure you have bait on your line as well. Otherwise, you will just end up catching junk only. All right. Those fish seem to have... Oh, they came back. Let's make sure we've got bait on there. Yep, we've still got bait. Let's go ahead and cast this out here. Now, low-level skill will require some patience, so it is something to keep in mind. But fishing is something you can do. It doesn't require a whole lot of effort. You're not wearing yourself out. You can do it in a generally safe area. You can build a campfire nearby. There's a broken fishing net. Now, these can be repaired once you've got the recipe learned, which you can learn from the magazine. Which I believe is, let me see if I've got it here in my notes, Angler USA, May 1993, or Fishing 6. We'll teach you how to dismantle fishing nets. You should also be able to repair them, I believe. Or maybe you can't repair them, you have to dismantle them into wire and craft new ones. We'll take a look at that in a bit later episode that's a bit further advanced for the fishing and the foraging and stuff. I tend to like my fishing a bit more active, so I don't use the nets very often. I find this a lot more engaging. Plus, I worry about forgetting about a net and leaving it. Empty plastic bottle. Now we've got more water storage. Make sure our bait's on there. It still is. Now another thing to keep in mind, there are good times for fishing as well, which is just dawn and dusk. So early in the morning and then just before it gets dark out. And you're going to be more likely to catch fish during those times. Another thing to keep in mind is you can usually tell what kind of fish you've got or if you've got junk on there by how easy it is to reel in. If it's very easy to reel in like that, then it's likely just that you have junk on there. So we're just going to keep fishing here until we catch something edible, hopefully. Empty tin can. Nice, that can be used for actually purifying water in as well. So you can put water in that and stick that in the fire and use that to purify your water. And the majority of your low-level fishing will be this, catching a lot of trash and stuff, but once you start getting your skill up some, you'll find that you'll start catching more fish. And you can take traits and perks to increase that skill as well from the get-go if you want. So if you plan on doing a lot of fishing, you can set your character up to be very good at it from the start. Which, if you're going to be living near water, I would highly recommend. Let's try some different bait. I don't think it'll make a difference, but you never know. Let's try a cricket. I don't look too far into the mechanics because I like to have some of the mystery still in the game. Otherwise, I'm just going to be looking for, you know, the optimal path every time, and that's not as fun. Another plastic bottle. Another rag. Alright, well, we're having pretty poor luck, so how about we increase our chances and talk about another skill while we're at it. Let's go over here. We've got this pot of clean water. Let's actually just put that in our inventory so we'll take a drink of it. There we go. And then we'll transfer that into one of these bottles. There we go, now we've got a water bottle. Then we'll just drop this stuff that we don't need right now here. Go ahead and clean the bandage with that. And we're empty. So while we're here, we'll go ahead and fill this pot back up and get some clean water while we get ready for our next step here, which we'll talk about, and that is going to be chum. Let's just get our clean water there. There we go. Just set that down there for now. Alright, now to make chum, it's fairly easy, and it's the same sort of deal with needing the traits or professions as fishing, making fishing rods to make. So the first thing you need is sand, and you can usually find it near water sources and rivers, by roads. You just right click and you can make chum. You can also do this with bags of sand that you find, the sacks of sand, although you're a lot less likely to get that in the wilderness. So we're just going to turn these sand spots into chum, or chum base rather. This is just the start, but we will be needing that. Alright, and we're kind of hungry, so we will eat the rest of our food that we made in the last episode from foraging. Very nice. Alright, so now we've got our chum base, and this works pretty much the same as food. So what you do is you add your different types of bait to the chum. And then each type of bait you add to it increases its effectiveness. Let's add the centipede. We do want to keep some of the bait to use for ourselves, or just drop the ones we're not using there. Alright, we've got bait on the fishing rod right now, so let's go ahead and add a lot of cricket. Alright, now chum is supposed to increase your chances of catching fish where you use it. You can use it as bait in fishing traps, or you can just use it directly in the water. Right here we go, add chum, insect bait chum. Alright, and then we're going to equip our rod, and we've already got our bait on there. And then we're just going to start fishing right here where we dropped the chum. And hopefully we'll catch some fish this time. Seaweed, nice. That is actually useful. You can use the seaweed as, I believe, as an ingredient for cooking, and you can also use it to make sushi, but that requires stuff that we're not going to find out here, so we won't worry about that for now. Eventually we'll get into the dusk time, but as you can see, early level fishing can be tough. It's good to supplement it with your foraging. So what you can do is you can forage, and while you gather all your veggies and berries through foraging, you can make food with that. And then you can use the bugs that you find as bait for fishing. And eventually you'll get your fishing to a point where you will start catching fish regularly, and you'll have a steady diet of fish and vegetables and berries. Try casting right here where I dumped the chum. Alright, so we just keep trying. Like all things, especially low skill, we just keep working at it until we get success. And it's not something you need to do all at once. You can work on it over time while you're foraging and doing other things. Alright, we should be getting close to dusk here. Let's move over here a little. Make sure we got bait. Yep. Alright. Let's go ahead and try fishing over here. Well, let's see that. We might actually have a fish that time. We got little sparkles in the water. We caught our very first fish. There we go. Right at dusk. A small green sunfish, 13 centimeters. Now something to keep in mind is fish under a certain size, you can't cut into fillets. You'll just have to cook them and eat them that way. So since we're at a good time of day for fishing, we're going to keep fishing here. The water looks pretty active over there, so we're going to keep casting that direction. Check more junk. That's right, we did not put bait on after we caught our last fish. That's something else to keep in mind. After you catch a fish, you generally tend to lose your bait, so you'll have to remember to add bait back to your hook afterwards. Otherwise, you'll just keep catching trash. Oh, looks like we might have another fish here. Alright, nice. What do we got? Small yellow perch, 16 centimeters. I think we got one more caterpillar, so we'll stick that on there. And we're starting to get hungry, so we'll head back and see if we can't do something about these fishies after we use this last bit of bait. I think that's all we got. I think we might have another fish. We do. Alright, let's check our bait. We have no bait left. Alright, so we are going to go ahead and head back to camp. I need to clean up my mess here eventually. Alright, bottles and rags go there. Alright, so we got all these fish. Let's see if any of them are large enough to turn into fillets. So we go over here. We go to our crafting. We do. We can turn this small green sunfish into a fillet. Right, and I think that is probably it. The other two might be too small. Let's take a look at them. Yeah, they have to. I think they have to have over 10 or 12 hunger before they can be filleted, but we can cook them as is. So that's fine. The fish guts can be used in the chum as well. So we'll set that down. Now we've got 2 fresh fish fillets. Let's grab our pot of water here. And then we're going to go over here where we've got all our ingredients on the ground. And we are going to create a stew. We'll do a stew. It's better. Alright. Now we've got our fish stew, and we're just going to keep adding fish to it while we can. Okay, we've got 2, and then we're going to add our herbs. Now, it's not a lot of fish, but it will be a good example. You can wait until you have more fish. You can also use other food you've gathered from foraging. Right now, we don't have a whole lot. We used most of it in the last episode, but that's not super important for this particular one. So we're going to go ahead and stick this in our fire and let that cook. We'll just speed up time a little bit here. Things do take quite a while to cook in the fire as well, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Alright, and then we can also stick these 2 fish in here and cook these small ones individually. Are you cooked? You are. And then we can just eat those if we want. They do provide a bit of good unhappiness if you eat them while they're hot, so I would recommend eating them while they're hot and fresh. Once they get cold, they won't be so good for you, so we'll go ahead and munch down on those. We've got our pot of stew here. We'll go ahead and eat that up too, since it's pretty small. We didn't have a lot of fish to put in it. And there we go. So we have successfully caught some fish, worked on our butchering skill by filleting them, worked on our cooking skill by turning them into a stew, and then we ate them, and then we also ended up with some fish guts we can use in our next chum base. So that's a pretty good start. Now, the fishing nets are something that I will probably touch on later. They can be crafted. I don't use them a whole lot, but they work just like the normal fishing traps. I don't have one with me here, and I'm going with like a more pure wilderness run, so if I can't find one out here, then I'm not going to use it. But you basically just place the trap at the edge of the water and put bait in it, and then after an hour or more, you can right click on it and check on it and see if it's caught anything and take it out. You just can keep adding bait to it that way and catching fish, so it's pretty simple. If you'd like to see that, we can always go over it a little bit in a future episode, so let me know in the comments if you do. Alright, so as we've seen, the best time to catch fish is during dusk and dawn. We caught mostly trash during the middle of the day, but once it started getting towards dark, we started catching fish left and right, so that is something to keep in mind if you're planning. Is I would recommend doing your foraging during the day when it's lightest and you can find stuff easiest, and then head to your water area, maybe if it's by your camp, and do some fishing right at dusk, and then you can cook your food and have a nice meal, do all your camp stuff at night, wake up early the next morning. If you want to go fishing again in the morning, you can. It kind of makes a nice cycle of catching food, and as your fishing skill improves, the size of the fish that you catch and the amount of nutrition they provide will improve as well, and eventually you'll start catching large fish that'll give you very large fillets, and you'll make some amazing stews out of them. So it's something to work towards in the future. You just have to have a little bit of patience at first in order to get past the part where you're catching mostly junk. So I think we will go ahead and call it here for this one. We've gone over some fishing, a little bit of basic butchering and cooking. We've got a whole lot more to do in further episodes, so if you like this and you want to see more, think about giving me a sub. If you have any questions or specific things about survival that you want to see in future episodes, let me know down in the comments. Until next time, take care, be safe, and I will see you later.